Greetings, wrestling fans, and welcome to Fannin's Flashbacks, the podcast that nobody asked for, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. This podcast is going to cover tales from IWA Mid-South during my 12 years with the company, and it will be a part of the VNMVS Podcast Network. This podcast is intended for mature audiences only due to the foul language and graphic details about deathmatch wrestling that it will contain. This will be your backstage pass to get a peek behind the curtain at what led to the downfall of the craziest independent wrestling promotion of the late 1990s, early 2000s. And without any further ado, Nick Manawa, hit the music. Greetings, wrestling fans, and welcome to episode 6 of Fannin's Flashbacks. It's the podcast that nobody asked for, but I decided to give it to you anyway. These are tales from my time in IWA Mid-South from 1997 to 2009, and I want to start this off by giving a shout out to Mike Smith. I work with Mike at my shoot job, and he's been suffering from some medical issues, and he's been out for several weeks. Today, he dropped by sporting his brand new Jim Fannin used to have a posse, remember the Fannin family t-shirt. Well wishes for a speedy recovery, Mike, and I hope you enjoy the podcast. And today I am joined by former 3-time IWA Mid-South light heavyweight champion and member of the Gold Bond Mafia, Chuck E. Smooth.
What's up, Jim? What's up? You're making guys at work buy your t-shirt, man? Come on now.
I am not making them. I am suggesting it all the time, and
well, they must like you. That's nice of them.
Yeah, they don't realize what I used to be like, so I gotta play nice now. So
yeah, there's every once in a while someone will come up to me at work and be like, "I hear you used to wrestle," and just immediately, like, my stomach will sink, and I'll just be like, like, what did you look up on the internet about me? What did you see?
Right.
What did you hear? Who told you? And it's just always like hit or miss,
Yeah, I wouldn't tell anybody. I just act, there was like 1 or 2 people that actually knew who I was when they came in, and they were like, this might be a strange question, but were you? And I'm like, yeah, that was me. And like, they were like, oh, I've seen a few shows. That's amazing. And but for the most part, I wouldn't mention it. And then Manawa drugged me back. I've mentioned it already on the podcast, where Manawa got me back into it when he told me that Mitch and Roland were going into the GCW Hall of Fame. And then I was like, well, maybe I should start worrying about my legacy and what people think of me. And maybe I should try to distance myself from certain people that I'm attached to the hip with, on the internet, and control my own narrative. And it's led to all this, and the amount of guys that have reached out, like you reached out to Nick Manawa, and I couldn't believe when you said that Hero had like sent you
he sent me the deal. He's like, hey, check this out, look at this, because we're always talking about IWA, just telling stories.
Yeah, so I've had several people, guys that I wouldn't have imagined ever talking to again, because I had like pretty much just cut off wrestling completely, and there was really only Mitch and Manawa that I would like keep in contact with. And so it's been nice to start to reconnect with folks. And I've already had American Kickboxer on the show, and now we're shifting over to you. You've listened to the podcast so far, so pretty much I always start off with just a background with the guest of what made you become a wrestling fan.
You know what? I was always a wrestling fan as far back as I can remember. Like, in all honesty, one of my earliest like positive memories is flipping channels and coming across and all the shit that's on YouTube. I've never been able to find it, so maybe it's a fantasy in my brain, but I remember It was Wyndham and Rotundo, Team USA or US Express. They, I think, did an angle with Volkov and Sheik where Sheik kicked Wyndham in the eye with the pointed boot, and Barry was cutting a promo and he had his eye bandaged up about. And that was the first bit of wrestling that I remember seeing and just being super intrigued by it. And I was a fan from there. And, this would have been probably 84, 85, I
Yeah, it would
imagine.
have had been, right around
Yeah.
that time. And they actually made Real American
Yeah,
for
for
them.
them. Yeah, yeah. Like
Not
I had
Hogan.
that wrestling album with, and Hulk's
Yep.
theme was really shitty, and Real American was clearly that was the hit of the album. And from there, I don't know how. My dad obviously saw I was into wrestling. My dad wasn't so much of a wrestling fan as he enjoyed the beer they sold at wrestling matches. And often we'd go to local wrestling shows, or always local wrestling shows. And at the time, this is in South Chicago, and there was still a state commission. So a lot of times we would go over the border in Northwest Indiana, and there'd be shows called Chicago Championship Wrestling or whatever, but it would be in Indiana. And every summer there were always tons of carnival and fair shows. But on these carnival and fair shows, you would have like Nord the Barbarian. I remember seeing Brody, Ox Baker, tons of guys like Paul Christie was always on these shows, and Paul Christie's a guy who was kind of lost to time that was fantastic. If you are a Bobby Heenan fan, like Bobby Heenan got a lot of his shit from Paul Christie. You can see, and I haven't read it, but I skimmed through it. Paul Christie's biography or autobiography. Heenan does the introduction and really puts him over huge. Wow. But a lot of Heenan's verbiage and the way his affectation is a lot of Paul Christie. And it could be just that they grew up in the same area and whatnot. But but he was great. He was on a lot of those shows. Moose Cholak, who was a big star back in the day, was on those shows, and he was just a character. Like, one of my earliest memories is him yelling at his grandson, and so I'd always be trying to get autographs and stuff. So I'd always constantly be around these guys. Mr. Electricity, Steven Regal. Who else was on these shows? Oh shit! But they were super fun. There's always lots of blood and gimmick matches and shit. Early days of Windy City wrestling were really good, but that went to shit pretty fast too. I remember going to one Windy City show, and Dennis Condrey's there, and Doug Summers, Randy Rose, Colonel De Beers, whatever. And the next show, it's just all garbage. Who knows what happened, but I think he started getting students and just started booking students on the shows. But yeah, so I went to shows for years and then got out of it, like most people do, early high school. And then late, I don't know. I got back in a few years prior to the explosion. They started putting Smoky Mountain, I believe, on TV in Chicago and USWA. I don't know how long it was on for, but I discovered it around 95. One of the first Smoky Mountain shows I caught on TV, the Gangstas were on it. And then from there, I, started buying the Mark Mads again.
Do you remember what channel that was? Because I
want to say it was WCIU, maybe, but that's what it is now. It would have been either on UHF, it would have been either Channel 50 or Super 66, one of those.
Well, those two channels had that would be where I got all my wrestling growing up, and they had all the different shows on there. But I had already, if it was 95, I would have already been in Kentucky, going to University of Kentucky.
Yeah, Smoky Mountain, I think came on Friday nights. Maybe it was Friday nights it came on, and then USWA came on Saturday mornings at either 5 or 6 a.m.
Wow.
And Windy City followed it or came prior to it, and their show was only a half an hour, and it was shit. But I would stay up Friday night to make sure that I didn't miss USWA. And it started, I want to say it was during the Tommy Rich, and one of the last high points, probably, Rich and Gilbert with PG-13.
Okay.
And it was on in Chicago till the end. In fact, Music City eventually took over the time slot. And
wow.
So I saw that Music City shit too.
Okay. So you would have saw all the guys that eventually ended up migrating over to IWA Mid South at
Oh
the
yeah,
very
dude.
beginning.
Like prior to going to IWA Mid South, I worked for quasi legendary Kamala Jr. Do you remember that dude?
I never met him, but definitely have heard. Now, is this Kamala Jr. or Kamala Jr. Jr.?
I think Kamala Jr. was on those shows, but he was just some
Okay.
like shit local guy that was friends that worked on those shows, and I think he was ribbing Kamala Jr. when he did the Jr. things. He was just like a fat white dude. But
Yeah.
Kamala Jr. was a great Kamala knockoff, except he was like my height. He was heavy set, he was real short, but he wasn't the complete shits. There's far worse have come before and come after, and he was almost like a baby Ian in a way. He he always had some scam going on. He his promotion was also called IWA, and I can't remember if they ran Tuesday nights or Monday nights at the time, but did them for a while. And Flash Flanagan's dad was the booker originally, and he had like he'd bring in Tennessee Vol, Stephen Dunn, Reno Riggins, Doug Gilbert was there, a lot of OVW dudes that the Bashams. When
Okay.
one was Damaja, and then the one
Yeah.
who went by Danny Davis's nephew, whatever his name was. And one show, I'm coming in late. I'm coming in through the front of the building, and people are getting in, giving their tickets, and there's a girl arguing with the woman at the ticket booth. And she's telling her she doesn't have to pay to get in. And she's like, "What do you mean you don't have to pay to get in?" She goes, "Well, I'm Kamala Jr.'s girlfriend." And this girl couldn't be more than like 16 years old, right? And she's like, "You're Kamala Jr.'s girlfriend." And she goes, "Well, I'm Kamala Jr.'s wife." And
Oh,
like, and she goes nuts. And she was like, just like a not an unfortunate looking woman with a rat tail, and it was bad. And then so somebody goes and gets Kamala Jr. and he comes out, and I'm like kind of like a safe distance away, but I'm wanting to see how this pans out. And he just was like laying it down to her, telling her like he's a wrestler, baby. Like this is just how it goes, you know.
wow. Jesus
And his
Christ.
wife's in tears and her little rat tail shaking, and it was so sad,
Oh,
but at the same time, like oh my god, only in shitty independent wrestling. But yeah, I remember working at that place, IWA, and thinking to myself, man, one day if I can only make it to the real IWA, this would have been in like 1999. And it was just like, oh
okay.
my God, man.
Craziness. So, you grew up sort of the same way I did, watching all the wrestling that we were able to get in the Chicago market. What made you decide that it was what you wanted to do?
You know what? It was the only thing I ever really wanted to do. I never had any kind of profession in my mind that I was like, oh, this is what I want to do for a living, other than maybe like growing up on 80s action movies and thinking, you know what, I'm gonna be a fucking mercenary. Like I'm gonna go and I'm gonna rescue POWs from Vietnam, Like wrestling was like all I wanted to be. It was when high school, when you have to write your what do you want to be when you grow up, or what are you going to do? Like I wrote, I wanted to be a wrestler, and got laughed at by everyone. Uh, Always like obviously now, literally anybody can be a wrestler, you know. But in the mid late '90s, someone my size, you risk being laughed out of a wrestling school going in just asking to be trained. Like I remember hearing stories from guys who went to Danny Davis, and Danny Davis flat out told them like, hey, you can still live your dream as a referee, or this and that. And in a way I respect that, as opposed to people who are just like, oh, like give me your money, yeah, you could do it.
Right.
But it was slowly change. It was changing at that point, but it was still very risky. And I always was trying to put on size, and then at some point I realized like I could wait forever until I put on enough size. Like I might as well just get out there and start doing it. And oddly enough, American Kickboxer was a big inspiration. Like I didn't have the internet. I had one friend who had the internet, and every time I would go over to his house, he just would roll his eyes because I would ask if I can use his internet because I wanted to. Like it was essentially to read ECW results. Like that's, I was obsessed with ECW at this time. This would have been, I'm assuming 97, maybe 96, 97. And I remember from ECW, I learned about Carluzzo shows. And from Carluzzo shows, I learned about IWA. And I ended up getting a tape of first reading about Kickboxer and just reading a lot about him and Tarek and people putting him over. And then when I saw him, I was like, holy shit, like, this dude's smaller than me. And people aren't laughing at him, like, and I'm not as athletic. I can't do flips. I can't do this shit and whatnot. But like, at least if I go out there and I put on a respectable performance, I'm not going to get laughed out of a building. So that was like, that's what I needed to see. I needed to see someone who wasn't like openly mocked, like just like I didn't want to go out there and be laughed at. But still, for my first couple years in, I was laughed at, by guys in the back, like, the vets who never did anything, who never left the area or whatever. You'd hear snickers, you'd hear this and that, when you'd first walk out through the curtain, people would laugh at you and shit and whatnot. But, over time, through your performance, you earn people's respect. Like, people stop seeing you as someone who's small. They'd see you as someone who's entertaining.
Well, that almost reminds me of, were you on the Carmine show at the Greyhound dog track where he brought in the Crusher?
I was on a few of those shows. I was super fucked up for most of them. So, like, I would hate to think that I wouldn't remember the Crusher, but it's possible. I had to wrestle one time as the Greyhound guy. I wore the Greyhound like theme park outfit and had to wrestle Frankie DeFalco in it.
Okay. Well, I just remember I was at one and he had brought in the Crusher, and like Ian was the top baby face in the company at the time. Might have even had the title. I can't remember. And I just remember laughing hysterically because the Crusher just went up and stared at Ian and then looked at Carmine and went, "That's your baby face." I'm like, you and the Bruiser were like baby faces.
Yeah, no shit, man. Yeah.
But yeah, I can definitely understand the way you were saying with the size, because back then, I mean,
I was the smallest guy on every show.
With Vince McMahon, it was, everybody everybody had to be 6'9", 350 pounds. And, you said that you always wanted to be in wrestling. I didn't even think it was a possibility. So it was never anything that even had entered my mind. Never thought, because I'm like, I'm 5'8". What I'm not, I can't do that. I might be heavier than a lot of the folks, but I'm not athletic enough. I never dreamed it was something that I could ever end up getting into. And it's great when I get to talk to somebody, relatively close to my age, and you could talk about how you didn't have the internet back then. And, we get the younger folks today. If somebody happens to listen to this, and there would be like, what are you even talking about? Like it was, the internet was, in its infancy at that point, because when my dad passed away in 1996, I had to drop out of the University of Kentucky because there was no option for me to like finish the classes online.
Insane,
it wasn't a thing.
That's crazy.
They hadn't even thought of that at that point. And so when I had to like go home and take care of everything, and I was going to miss the entire end of, the last half of the classes, they were like, you got to drop out. There was no other option. And today, if it had happened today, I could
no problem. Yeah.
I would have just finished up online and not had all these F's go on to, my official transcript, because it was already past the ad drop date, so
even finding a wrestling school was hard back then. I found a wrestling school. Like, I was going to all kinds of local shows and whatnot, but still just kind of like hesitant to go up and ask somebody about a wrestling school. Like there was the guy who ran Windy City, was like a total carny dude. He, me and my buddies met him at a gas station to buy tickets to their big show. and they ran a yearly show at the Hammond Civic Center, and which was like the big venue in South Chicago and Northwest Indiana. WWF and WCW and NWA, they all came through there. Everybody would come through there, and they would pack the place out, right? But and you find out later that everybody on the card had to sell 10 tickets. They had 30-man, 60-man battle royal students that they had to sell tickets and shit. So they packed it out because they padded everything. But we asked him about the wrestling school, and we were like 16, and he was ready to like sign us up. Your parents will have to come in and sign the forms, and and it was just like, like you just got the feeling right away this is shady. But I found out about the wrestling school I went to. A kid I was in community service with was working at Burger King, and the guy he worked with at Burger King was a wrestler. and I'm like, shit, like, when does he work next? And he's like, he's going to work with me on Friday. And I went in there and talked to him, and he told me about the wrestling school, and I went in and started training with my buddy. But yeah, it's just everything was so much different back then. It was crazy.
Yeah. So you found yourself a school. Do you want to talk about the school and the training?
It was in Northwest Indiana. It was located in a really shitty neighborhood right outside of Gary called Lake Station, which is kind of like just like a white trash outpost of Gary. And first time I walked into the wrestling school, there's a fucking smells like shitty diapers. There's a baby screaming in a playpen, just screaming. There's 200-300-pound guys sitting on a couch. One's eating a dilly bar, and it was just like, what the fuck have I gotten myself into, man? And the two guys who ran the school, Rod Bell and this dude T-Rex, Rod Bell was the name he used, and the name he used was R.T. Williams, and they were both they were constantly used during mid to late 90s when WWF came through town. They were always on all the tapings. They were both super big guys. Like both of them probably could have had a chance of doing something at just that time period. It's hard to believe, but there were a million guys of that size back then. Like right. It wasn't like now. Two guys that size in wrestling would be freak shows, like they'd be booked as unstoppable heels and shit. But back then they were a dime a dozen. And from there, I just started working shows pretty quick. Like they were running about 2 to 3 times a month. They had a promotion that they worked with that ran out of Central Illinois, and they were running like 2 times a month. So I was working at least every weekend. And it was through that other promotion that I met CM Punk. He was at one of those shows, and funny memory about that, all the old timers around there were openly making fun of him, just openly mocking him. This kid says he's going to make a living in wrestling. This kid said this is what he said he's going to do for a living. He said he's going to make this kid's going to make it. And I'm thinking like all these fucking goofs, like, too funny, man. And karma bit all those guys in the ass.
Yeah. Now, when you first, did you always have maybe it was too early for Britney Spears Boyfriend, but did you always have that kind of gimmick?
I was always Chuck Smooth. And like Chuck Smooth was like a nickname I had growing up. I had a fake ID that said Chuck Smooth forever, and then
McLovin.
It just said Chuck Smooth, and I worked every time. They'd be like, cool name, and like I would use it to buy cigarettes. And it's just, and like I got it when I was 15 to say I was 18. So in the back of my mind, I always knew that was going to be my wrestling name. And then so I was just Chuck Smooth. And I started doing, when everybody first gets in, they want to be cool. I wanted to be cool. I wanted to be, at the time, like X-Pac / Just Incredible. Like I wanted to be a slick, tough guy. But eventually you learn that doesn't work. And I started doing like the pretty boy thing. And started doing the boy band type shit. Like I would wear like an NSYNC half shirt to the ring. And then from there, started doing the Britney Spears Boyfriend thing. Like she had become like a cultural phenomenon overnight, it seemed, and I hadn't even seen the her music videos or anything like that. Like I'd seen her on like the cover of like Rolling Stone and whatnot. Because like if this is another thing that people don't remember, if you didn't catch the video on MTV, you didn't see that shit. If you didn't watch MTV, you didn't see a music video. You couldn't go on YouTube and watch Baby Hit Me One More Time. Like I think I'd been doing the gimmick for like a year before I finally saw the videos. And I'm like, holy shit, like she is really hot. Like
yeah.
But
well, to jump ahead because I have this written down, when you got to IWA and you were doing the Britney Spears Boyfriend gimmick, did you and Brent Blades have heat over that?
What, he was a huge Britney Spears fan, or was he Christina
Aguilera
guy?
He was head over heels for Britney.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he would. I mean, there was some kind of promotional thing that was going on where like McDonald's had like these cardboard cutouts of Britney.
Nice.
And like he took the one from Charlestown because it was some marks were working in there, and he took the cardboard cutout of Britney. And like,
Jesus, I could have made some money with that thing. I could have got some 8x10s done up.
Yeah, he
could have hooked me up, man. He might have had heat and just not told me about it.
He might be very upset that I talking about that on the podcast here.
Like, Jesus, I missed out.
But that would have been like if he could have probably have picked the gimmick at that point.
Yeah.
He would have wanted to have billed himself as the Britney Spears boyfriend.
Yeah, dude, it's such a great obvious gimmick that I'm shocked that more people haven't stolen it over the years. Like there's so many like the fact that there hasn't been someone in the last 5 years that's been Taylor Swift's boyfriend is just insane to me. Like just easy heat. Yep. Like joking around, like I had an idea, like this is, going back a decade when like Justin Bieber was like the phenom, like where I would come back and I'm clearing the air. I was never Britney Spears' boyfriend, blah, blah, blah. But I found out I was adopted and my brother's Justin Bieber. I'm Stanley Bieber, and like that could have worked. But it's just shit like that. Like
it's so easy
to grab onto pop culture. You think just more people would do that, but like, I don't know, people aren't too big into gimmicks. Like, not to get off topic, but say someone like a Danhausen, talking like modern wrestling, like, whether you like his work or not, I haven't seen much of it, but I admire the concept behind it. And you think like every guy on the indies who's struggling, who's middling, who's not making any money, who's not doing shit, why aren't you coming up with a Danhausen gimmick? Why aren't you at least trying to come up with some high concept gimmick that you could incorporate into your work and try to do something with it? But everybody takes themselves far too seriously.
Well, because it's a lot easier to just be Kamala Jr.
But shit, that would even be original today. Like, that would be a breath of fresh air.
Now you're working that gimmick. You've switched. You've added the moniker Britney Spears Boyfriend. At what point did you start? You called it the real IWA jokingly earlier. At what point did you start thinking that would even be a possibility? Or did it just fall into your lap?
Yeah. It just happened really. Like you'd hear people talk about IWA all the time, especially once I started going, more towards the South. IWA would come up in conversation. There'd always be talk about Ian, just like Ian going too far and Ian doing this. And when Indiana shut down the armories, where you couldn't run the armories anymore, everybody blamed Ian, and I still don't know the truth about that. I don't know if I've been told by multiple people that it had nothing to do with Ian, that it was a separate incident, and then I've heard that it did. But if just from what I heard,
I was there.
It was Ian. So Ian did do it.
Well, what happened was like right around the time of the Owen Hart death.
Yeah.
We were running the armories,
and
Too Tough Tony did a corkscrew off a U-Haul top of the U-Haul jumped off and did a corkscrew splash
Mm-hmm.
through 2 tables,
Mm-hmm.
probably like on Pondo or somebody,
Yeah.
crashed through, and like Joe Bailey and maybe Cornette, never got exactly who, but some people made
Duked
calls
it
and
out.
complained. Um, because Joe Bailey had made it his life's mission to like
Yeah.
shut us down. So he would call, he would call fire marshals, he would call everybody,
Yeah,
and
he was still
he
doing
would
it in the
brag
Charlestown
about,
days.
right. And
Yeah.
he would brag about it. And, so he like made a lot of phone calls, and we got called into the armory, and like the higher ups or whatever were like, we can't have something like that happen. And so they were like, we're done with wrestling.
Holy shit, man. No shit. That Ian, that lying motherfucker. I can't believe he lied to me. That's a first. Breaking news. Ian lies.
Well,
but
there's a story behind that one.
But, yeah, so when the armories got shut down, that was a big deal. But just people like, and then you heard about Corporal Robinson. This was around that time period where Corporal almost died.
Right.
That came up, and then just you'd hear just a lot of crazy shit always going on there, like the shoot fights, like you heard about Flash Flanagan beating up the Shooting Stars. The fucking Wolfie D Ox Harley fight was legendary, man. The Misfits beating the shit out of Billy Real.
Yeah.
like all that shit. You heard about all that shit, and it was just like, it sounded like a scary place to work. And it was like I remember I'd be working out and watching like IWA tapes and like that opening the music, the montage to the show where they'd play Crazy Train.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, this is cool as shit. Like, I want to wrestle there one day. But at the back of your mind, you'd be kind of scared. You'd be like, I might get my fucking ass beat if I go up in there, right? And then fast forward, I end up getting booked to work for Carmine. And I wrestled Too Tough Tony. And afterwards, I got booked for Carmine after that. Like, I had several dates with him. And at the bar afterwards, Prazak just openly throws out, like, I didn't know Prazak from a hole in a wall. That was the first time I met him. Like, I had heard about him, people talking about him, bringing him up. And when I'd go on the internet, I read his name, and I knew that at the time, he had some sort of affiliation with Carluzzo. Like, I think he was going out there and ring announcing or whatever, some shit like that, did some commentary. So I knew that he was in the mix. And we were at the bar, and he said something about asking if anybody wanted to go to IWA on Wednesday, because you guys had just started running Charlestown again.
Yeah.
You had a show on Saturday, the Saturday before, or maybe a couple Saturdays before. And I think it was, I can't remember. I think Sabu and Dino might have had a match or some shit. I can't remember who
they
it
did
was.
wrestle. They wrestled at some point. So
it was the first show back, and Pierce was supposed to wrestle. Pierce was supposed to come down that Wednesday with Prazak, and then Pierce backed out. So he didn't have anybody to go with him. And I just chimed in and was like, I'll go, fuck it, right? And Prazak's like, oh, well, I didn't see your match. Like, he kind of like big time me. And he's like, well, I'd have to see your match first and shit. And I was just like, all right, though, man, like, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And if I remember correctly, I think you saw the match and you vouched for me. And you said that it was all right. And then
at a Carmine show, I said that?
Yeah, I wrestled Tony at a Carmine show. And I'm pretty sure he ended up saying, like, Jim Fannin said it was all right. So then I came down to Ian's, and this was like the first time I felt like I was like on a real wrestling show. Like, I'm trying to think who was there at the time. Like, Axel might have been there, and this was like real, like, dark times for Axel, where he was like shooting Newbane and shit. Like, he was in real bad shape, but he was like fresh off TV and shit, like, and being a big ECW fan, like, it was a big deal at the time. Like, for the first time being in a locker room with a bunch of guys that I read about on the internet that I knew, like, got coverage and shit like that. And it was a Wednesday night, and it drew fairly decent. So they're putting the card together. I'm working with Chip Fairway. Chip Fairway was supposed to work with Adam. And first off, Ian goes, I don't like your name. to me. Like, he doesn't like my name, Chuck Smooth. And I'm like, oh, okay. And he goes, like, what am I going to call you? And Axel chimes in real quick. He goes, call him Paul E. Smooth. And he's like, all right, you're Paul E. Smooth. And I'm like, well, what about Britney Spears Boyfriend? I'm like, you want me to get rid of that? Oh, and he goes, no, you can keep that. But prior to that, Axel goes, have him call him Paul E. Smooth and have him go out there and say a bunch of lies. But do the Britney Spears thing too, which kind of just seemed like a little like weird to me, to go out
like that part's true.
Yeah.
And lie about the other stuff.
Yeah. So they would they'd have me go out there and like they'd feed me lines that shit like Paulie would say and like inside jokes that would like pop them and whatnot. And so prior to the match, he's handing out the finishes and Chip's like, well, what do you want us to do? And he's like, just beat the shit out of him. And Chip's like, oh, like what? And he's like, yeah, just beat the fuck out of him. Don't give him nothing. And I'm like, oh, fuck, man. And Chip's like, okay. He beat the shit out of me, dude. Oh, my God.
And Chip Fairway, for those that don't know, built like a fucking brick shit house.
He could have been a Dick the Bruiser Crusher kind of guy.
He could have been.
Like that golf gimmick was solid, but I necessarily don't think it was good for him. He did it fine. Don't get me wrong. But I think if you would have sent him out there in black trunks, black boots with his face and his fucking chest and shit, and he was an ass kicker, man. Like, he would have been a believable ass kicker. He wasn't super tall or nothing like that, but he was. No. He was just a tough dude, man. He had that look to him where he'd get mad, his face would get all red and shit. Like, you would have bought into it. And
he was amazing.
Yeah,
and he could go in the.
Oh, he can go with anybody, man. He was great.
Him and Suicide Kid were, Punk Hero before Punk Hero, and just nobody's seen it.
Yeah,
because it was pre-Smart Mark, and there might only be like one or two shows that were even recorded that turned out.
Yeah,
that has that matchup, if there's even any in existence.
Yeah. But he was real good and just a good dude, and but that night he terrified the fuck out of me, man. Like I said, it was Shark Boy was there, and what's his name? The other guy that was part of the old school posse.
GQ Masters?
GQ Masters was there, and they were just like popping for him, kicking the fuck out of me, man. I remember getting a snap mirror, boot to the back, and dude, my lungs felt like they were gonna burst through my chest. And his chops, oh my God, he was chopping me so fucking hard, dude. He had me in the corner, and he's chopping me so hard. I got my arms wrapped around the ropes, and I'm grabbing onto him just because it's hurting so bad. On just pure instinct, I didn't think it just happened. I put my hands up on one of them. He backs me in the corner, goes, you blocked my fucking chop again, and I'm gonna kill you. And I'm like, I'm sorry. And he called
Chip was the chopper before Cash.
Oh, Jesus Christ, man. He called some offense for me, and I was so fucking beat up at that point. Like, everything I did looked like shit. And we get in the back, and he's like, what, is that like your first or second match? Or something like? And I was like, nah, bro. I'm like, I've been working for 2.5 years and shit, And then he's like, oh, you're just nervous or whatever, blah, blah. But after that, he was super cool with me. Like we were buds for a while where we would talk on the phone and stuff. And he would get me when he left Les's, he seemed like a dude that, I think Les did dirty. He never gave me, the full story on it, but it seemed like that relationship didn't end well and kind of ruined wrestling for him, as far as just, he was just completely despondent with it. And, he would try to smarten me up at the time. I was, doing a lot of steroids and doing a lot of drugs and shit. And he would just be like, why? Why are you even wasting your time doing this shit? Just try to smarten me up before I was even able to listen to being smartened up. I was in that mode where this is what I'm doing. I'm a wrestler. I'm doing this, blah, blah, blah. But he was a real good dude. I was sad to hear that he passed away a while ago now, I think, right?
Yeah, it's been quite a while.
Yeah.
It was like a car wreck.
Yeah, it's sad, man.
But you brought up how they changed your name to Paulie Smooth, and I had a question written down. I mean, you did it, so obviously you were okay
Yeah.
with it that they did it. But I mean, were you really okay with them changing
I
your
was happy to
name?
I was happy to be there, and I got to work with a lot of ECW guys. So like, that was fun, and like at the time I thought like, well, fuck, I'm never working for ECW now, like I'm like, if I do, I'm gonna fucking get the Steve Carino treatment of fucking chair shots to the head for fucking 3 months.
Well, they would have changed your name to Ian
Yeah,
E.
yeah,
Smooth.
right.
You know,
But like, I
but
remember
did you
whether
feel like Virgil?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I could have been, right? And then I remember Ian telling me, like, towards the end of the Charlestown days when ECW was on hiatus and starting to go under, he had hit up Justin Credible to come in. And he said Justin Credible had to ask Heyman for permission. And Heyman said, go ahead, they'll probably have you work with that Paulie Smooth guy or some shit. And that's an Ian story, so who the fuck knows if it's true or not. But I remember like popping for that. But that shit, like, if the internet would have been like it is today back then, it would have been a bigger deal, because they had me saying all kinds of horrible shit, and I'm sure it would have pissed a lot of people off.
Well, talking about horrible shit that you did,
Yeah.
I did have a question on here. Do you have any memory at all of the night that you came out to the ring and you passed out clothes hangers to the ringside rats and told them that you were giving them take-home abortion kits?
Well, it was. I think I was just one, if I remember correctly.
Was it
but
just
I wrapped
one?
it up in a box. I wrapped it up. It was Valentine's Day, I think it was.
Okay.
And I gave it out to the girl on Valentine's Day as a present, and she opened it up, and it was a coat hanger, and it was a tag. The tagline was, "Next time you get into a situation, it'll save your mom and dad $300, and you can do it yourself." Yeah, which at the time I thought was hysterical, and now maybe a little crude.
Yeah, it was the kind of things that we did in IWA back
then.
It was
the 90s.
I don't
early
think
2000s.
we probably would be canceled for
Yes,
something
exactly,
like that
yeah.
now.
Yeah.
But back then, we sort of got away with it.
Dude,
again, because not a lot of people saw it.
Well, just it was back then, dude. Like, it was back then you can get away with shit like that. Like, it's just nobody cared. There was nobody to get upset about it. It was just the time period. It was all in jest, right? But at the same time, it's not something I would do today.
Right.
But when I used to tour with the midgets, I did that every show, dude. I didn't do the coat hanger bit, but I would do the spiel, and I couldn't tell you how many times people hit the midget ring on me. And security, because especially when you were at those type of shows where they're not wrestling fans, they have a hard time telling what's real and what's performative,
Right. My buddy Rich Wayne wanted me to ask you, and we'll fit it into this part of the discussion. He wanted to know, did you ever have to fight a fan because of your dancing on them when you would come out and do the dancing on and gyrating?
Not dancing, but mic work. I've had fans hit the ring on that, but like not dancing. Like, I think when you, for the most part, when you would do the dancing, I think people would just be so uncomfortable. Like, they didn't have an instinct to fight. Like there would be times where I'd hit, like, once they got used to the shtick, where I would hit the come out the door, the front row would be almost completely empty.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, Jesus Christ, there is nobody here. And then I'd realize, oh shit, like, they got up and they moved because they didn't want me to dance on them. Because, like, it's like you got like 18, 19-year-old wrestling fans. Like, that's the last thing in the world they want to have happen to them. Like, homophobia.
Right. And you would pick like the 50-year-old fat people that couldn't move, and you just go and gyrate all up on them.
Yeah, like a lot of times,
stuff.
Like, it would just be like, I never had like a set person. Like sometimes I would see somebody I just didn't like the looks of them. Like I could tell they thought they were cool or they were too cool to be there, and I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna get that guy. But most of the time I would just be walking and it would be like on autopilot. Like it would just be like, all right, here it goes, you know. And I'd be more off put by the people who wanted me to do it to him. Yeah,
Right. Right.
like,
Don't
I'm
give the
staying
people
with
what
this
they
guy.
want.
Come here, dance on me. Be like, no, see you later. But yeah, I had more people hit the ring on like just shit I said to him.
Okay. And you mentioned how like that first match, you know, Ian just told Chip to squash you.
Yeah.
At what point did you start getting over enough that instead of getting squashed, you know, you actually started like
Well,
moving your way up?
I think like
And
after that first show where Chip beat the fuck out of me, I thought I was done. Like I thought like, oh well, you know, that happened. I guess I'm not going back there because I thought I stunk it up. I remember on the ride back with Prazak, he's like, no man, he's like, you did your shtick, like it, you know, people liked it, blah blah blah. And I didn't hear back from Ian for a bit. And then the next Carmine show came around, and Ian was like, "Hey, like, do you want to come back?" And I was like, "Absolutely." And he's like, "Can you do Wednesdays and Saturdays?" And I was like, "Absolutely." And then at that time, I'm pretty sure was when ICP started touring. Do you remember that time period? And it was like,
I try to forget ICP, but
yeah, but like it was a very like the locker room was very light, you
light,
know.
yeah.
Pondo was gone, Tony was gone, and gradually guys would fall off that tour and either come back. Like that's when I first met Kickboxer came back, and other guys would get plucked out and go on the tour. I think there was like a hole in the locker room at that time because I was the first real out of town guy to come in to Charlestown. Like I remember for a while, like guys would be like, "Don't they have wrestling in Chicago?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, but you know, like this is IWA, man. Like you know, like you can tell, like people at first weren't very receptive, but I don't know how long I was there before like Punk and Cabana came in, but felt like a good while. Dave and I were coming in, you know, because it was obviously 2 shows a week, so
Yeah.
you know, a month of that's a lot of time, and like I felt like I was part of the crew by then. Like pretty quickly, I felt like I wasn't an outsider anymore.
Well, I know I've got written down here that July 15th, 2000 is when you won the IWA Mid-South Light Heavyweight title
No
for the
shit.
for the first time by beating Suicide Kid. So you're a champion at least a month before Cabana and Punk showed up
There we
because
go. See, there we go.
they showed up like they showed up in August when me and Prazak wrestled in my first match.
Yeah, dude. Like that's yeah, because I remember already like trying to get them on. Like I felt like established enough where I could like, you know, push to get them on. Like I remember Cabana came in first and I think Punk second.
Yeah, I think like Punk's debut, I think was like Cabana's second time
Yeah.
in.
The funny enough, Carmine shows what a eye for talent Carmine is. He passed on Punk and Cabana. Punk and Cabana had a tryout. He passed on him and took me.
Well, there we can get more into that in
Yeah.
a little bit. But do you have any memories at all of beating Suicide Kid for that title?
No, I just
For
remember
your
being
first
real.
one?
I remember being real happy that like, you know, that Ian thought of me to that, you know, at that time, you know, I had such respect for Ian. I just look, you know, he was by far the most accomplished person that I worked for. Just the fact that, you know, obviously the ECW run, but the fact that he was in Memphis, the stuff in Texas, you know, just that. I don't have to explain it to you. You get what I'm saying. You know, like
Right.
he was someone who had done something in wrestling, and to have him think I was worthy of the belt, to think that just even to like what I was doing was a big compliment at the time, and it just felt like I was heading in the right direction.
Yeah. So it looked like you, when I went back and checked, you held that title for 3 weeks. and then you ended up losing it to Daniel Quinn.
Yeah, I remember being bummed about that.
And then you and Mark Wolf traded the title back and forth. And this episode was actually supposed to be Mark Wolf, and then in IWA fashion, he no-showed for it. So you guys are going to flip-flop, and you've become episode 6. Mark will hopefully show up for the next go around and be episode 7. But do you have, like, you guys look like you beat Mark on December 29th and held the belt for one day. What is your favorite memory from that one-day reign?
God, man, I couldn't tell you. Like, so
before you dropped it back to him on December 30th.
What was the deal with that? How the hell did that happen? Like, where did we run back to that?
It obviously had to be like a Friday, Saturday, or something that
I
we had done.
I wonder why we ran the Friday and a Saturday.
It might have just been because like Sunday was New Year's Eve, so we might have done.
Who knows?
We might have done some. I have no memories of it.
Ian needed some money quick.
That's probably what it was, you know, oh shit, it's almost the first of the month. Let's run as many shows as we can. Hopefully, you know, we get some money in.
I remember it might have been the third run was for a decently long time. And I think it's because I just like forgot I had it. Like I had it for like almost like a year, or not quite a year, but like half a year.
Well, you, according to Cage Match, and again, in the title little histories here, like I said, you won it on December 9th, 2000. You lost it back to him on December 30th, so the very next day.
Yeah.
Then you won it back from Mark on January 10th.
Jesus.
Of 2001, and then you held it for 3 months.
There we go. Not as long as I remember, but 3 months is long in IWA.
Well, and twice a week.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Twice a week. That 3 months is 6 months. And
who did I lose it to this time?
You lost it to Isaiah.
Oh, okay.
Isaiah ended your title runs.
God damn it! It was all downhill.
It was all downhill from there. Who do you feel like you had your best IWA matches with?
Oh, geez Louise, man. I couldn't tell you. I remember I had a real good one with Cabana. I thought, I think it might have been a Thanksgiving show or an anniversary show. We had a fun one. I had some fun matches with Mitch. I remember having some fun matches with Mitch. Geez.
Now which Mitch?
Mitch Page.
Mitch Page.
Yeah, I never got to work with Mitch Ryder. Yeah, I never got to work with Mitch Ryder.
Just it's always it's hard when you're doing these podcasts, and you got to think of, you know, got to think of the average fan that might come across it, and they don't know when there's two famous Mitches in IWA Mid-South. You got to differentiate very different wrestlers.
But real quick on Mitch Ryder, gosh, if he was around today, he'd be a millionaire, man. If he could have kept his head on his shoulders.
Oh yeah, for sure. He definitely would be a millionaire today with what he could have done with.
He just would have been able to capitalize off the internet and social media and everything. Yeah, like he could have been great, man. It's too bad. So many of those guys, you know, and he's definitely one of them.
Yeah. So we can either start talking about individual people at this point, if you want, or we can start talking about you winding up your time in IWA and then having multiple long layoffs if you want to get, you know, I don't know what, you know, I'm not going to.
Dealer's choice, Jim. You go right ahead.
Okay. Well, the way I've got it written down right now, is, you know, you wrestle in IWA pretty much on a regular basis until March of 2002. And then you don't come back for 4 months until you come back and wrestle Nate Webb at the King of the Death matches.
Yeah, I broke my foot and ankle. I broke my foot and ankle. I'm not exactly sure when. But that was what led to that hiatus. And there was another hiatus before that. Do you remember this? Do you remember Mark Wolf's girlfriend at the time? Do you remember I was like fired for that? Do you remember that one?
I don't remember what led. I remember his then girlfriend.
Yeah. What was her name? Summer.
Yes,
so
Summer.
I remember I had an angle that was going to lead to Mark and I working again, where I wasn't even working. I would just run out, attack Mark post match, and leave him laying. And like, Mark's gimmick was he was kind of like a half-wit or whatever. Like he didn't know who did it, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
A goof.
The girlfriend would try to tell him. And I don't know if I did this 2 or 3 times, but on the third time, and, you still got the same shitty payday, so it didn't bother me any. I came in, I did the angle, I got high, and boom, whatever. I came out, and I booted her, and I dumped Mark. She slaps me. After she slaps me, I'm to boot her and give her my finish, which at the time was a pedigree, but I held your arms in like a V formation like this. And people would take a face bump, or guys like Isaiah or Dysfunction would take like a flip bump and like land on the back of their head, which is something that like I never wanted anybody to do. Like if they wanted to do it, good, because it looked really cool, but it's not something that like, I was like, you got to take it like this. Like told her to take a face bump. She took it like a flip bump, landed on her head, I guess, supposedly knocked herself out. I don't know if she did or she didn't. Wasn't aware she was hurt. Nobody told me she was hurt. I'm sure I didn't check on her. I should have, but I didn't. And she bitched about it. And I get a call from Necro Butcher. And Necro was staying at Ian's at house at the time. Necro calls me up and he's like, she was over at Ian's and she was burying you and saying that you fucking stiffed her and you dumped her on her head and you knocked her out and you didn't do this, you didn't do that. I watched the video back and I did stiff her I booted her pretty stiff and I felt bad about that. But in hindsight, after how she did Mark, I'm sure he was regardless.
I wish that I had this memory because I would have enjoyed that memory. Of that happening to her, but
so Necro it's telling me that they were talking about how they were all going to beat the shit out of me at the next show, which was like a Wednesday. And I went from working in a program with Mark following that to it all of a sudden being a 6-man tag with me, Uncle Honky, and Richard X, who are essentially the IWA fodder, versus Ian, Mark Wolf, and Summer. So like I knew something was coming. Like I would have known something was coming based off of that. But Necro telling me this to begin with, whatever. So I get to the building and I go to Ian. I'm like, are you guys gonna like shoot on me or what? And he's like, what are you talking about? No, like, and Ian must have liked me enough that he didn't, because he didn't shoot on me at all whatsoever. Mark gave me some stiff shots and she gave me a stiff slap and I had it come in. I didn't think anything about it, but I thought it was like over and done with. And then after that, next thing I know, I wasn't booked forever. And then I saw Ian at a Carmine show a few months later, and a few months in IWA time is a long time when it's 2 shows a week, so I felt like I was in, what do you call it? Where did they send them when they send what did they call it? Like they did in Napoleon?
Exile?
Exiled. Yeah, I thought I'm like exiled. My career's over. IWA's not booking me. Oh no. And he said, because I was living in Bloomington, Indiana at the time. And then I moved back to Chicago. And he goes, the only reason I stopped booking you was because you moved back to Chicago and I couldn't pay you trans. And it's like bullshit, Ian. You never fucking cared about paying me trans to begin with. But like, whatever. Then I remember Prazak telling me that they did a gimmick where Tarek was working with Kickboxer, but it was a mystery opponent. And they played my music before they played Kickboxer's music. And when they played my music, it got a huge pop. And then fucking after that, then they brought me back.
That sounds exactly like stuff Ian would do.
Yeah.
But yeah, Exiles never lasted long with him. Uh, really, all you would have had to have done is just called and been like, "Hey, can you use me?" And he would have put you on the show, and you'd have been the 48th wrestler on the show that was going to have 30 people in the crowd. So yeah, and then you said you ended up like, what was it, breaking your foot?
I broke my foot, and either broke my foot and fractured my ankle, or fractured my foot and broke my ankle, one or the other, doing a double axe handle off an apron. Like, just something, all the crazy shit you do, you hurt yourself on something stupid, and I came back way too early. I never got surgery on it. I should have got surgery. And between then and breaking my foot, the Charlestown building was kaput, and started running Clarksville. And it was when I broke my foot, like, it was the first time, like, I was working really steadily between, obviously 2 bookings a week with Ian for the most part. Carmine was running every 2 to 3 weeks. I had Michigan, and the midgets would keep you busy. You'd get Monday shows, you'd have Tuesday shows. Like, there was just always shit going on. Like, I was working for a time period 3 to 5 days a week, which is, for an indie guy back then, was pretty fucking good. But I was burnt out as shit, man. I would work at a video store when I had time. I was going to school on top of it, man. Somehow managing to pass classes and shit. Like, it's just crazy. And plus, I had a drug problem. But when I got off the road and I was home, the drugs really got out of control. When you're just sitting around doing nothing, and a bunch of scumbags are coming around, and that's when during that hiatus is when I got really, really, really bad on drugs. And after that, pretty much, like, that's when IWA.
Were the scumbags that were coming around, were those other wrestlers, or
no,
outside
just,
wrestling?
Just people from the neighborhood and shit,
Okay.
Like, people that I avoided while I was wrestling, like, you can see them once a week, if that, but like, when they're around constantly, but
it's not like the wrestlers are great to have around in those kind of instances either.
No, man, no.
Because I know the number of times that we would bring, we would fly Axel in, and, he'd start living with Ian, and we'd try to get him cleaned up and try to get him off of, all the stuff he was doing. And, he'd come to a wrestling show, and 10 minutes in the locker room, and he'd have 19 pills and everything else. And it's like, what are you guys doing?
Man, it's crazy. Like,
and it's like they're like, well, if I'm not clean, I don't want anybody to be clean, kind of thing.
Well, it's
just break my heart,
Yeah, it's weird, man. Like, I got to be decent buddies with Axel as far as like wrestling buddies are concerned, for a time period, and there'd be times where he wasn't, like, completely off the rails, and like, I'm trying to think, like, at the time, dude, like, there was probably nobody worse than me at the shows. like I would go pound for pound with anybody, man. Like, shit, like, I'm trying to think, like, other than probably like me, Axel, Sabu, and Corp, I don't think there were too many people that were really taking it to that next level.
Yeah, and
Necro too.
I would go. Every single time Sabu ever came in, like, he would walk up to me and ask me if I had anything.
Who do you think you were?
And, like, he finally, it had to have been like after about the 5th, 6th time that he came in, then he would just look at me and go, "I know, straight edge boy. I know you got nothing."
Yeah,
I'm like, yeah, just stay away. Yeah, I've got nothing. And
it's a funny Sabu story. Hero, Rugby Thug comes into IWA, and Hero hits him up and is like, "Hey man, what'd you think?" And he goes, "Oh, I really liked it. It was really cool. But I was a little weirded out." And he goes, What do you mean? Like, what weirded you out?" He goes, "Well, Sabu and Chuck Smooth were smoking crack in the locker room." And Hero's like, "What? Like, what the fuck are you talking about?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I walked into the office and Sabu and Chuck Smooth were smoking crack." Rugby Thug was such like a good dude that he never saw anybody smoke weed from like a bowl or anything like that. Like, he didn't know how you smoked weed. Like, we were smoking weed from a bowl and he thought we were hitting a crack pipe together. And like,
I mean, I was the same way. I'd never been around it, never saw it, and I had no. There was times I walked into places and I'm like, I have no idea what's going on here, and I just turn around and walk out, and I'd be like, I couldn't. I was like, I don't know. I don't want to know.
Were you at Ian and Patty's for that infamous Thanksgiving dinner that was after one of the Thanksgiving shows where
Sabu with the bacon?
Yeah,
yes,
dude.
I drove, and
did you take him to the airport?
I did not take him to the airport, but I drove to, like, from the show, I drove them to the trailer.
Yeah.
And like Sabu's in the back seat and he's just going wild. And I don't know what all he was on.
I don't know what else he was on, but like, we had these Adivans, like, and I don't know what what strength they were or anything like that, but like, these were like, they came from a woman who worked at a pharmacy that I was told was a rat for Jim the Anvil Neidhart.
Okay.
And these things were so strong, or we were taking them in such mass quantities, that I would literally like black out for weeks at a time. And we were on these things, and I was sharing them with Sabu, and we just got so fucked up that night, man, that it was just like a total mess. I remember him taking a knife off the table and sticking it under his leg, like hiding it, like he was gonna need a knife for later.
But and I mean, he almost killed us, because on the drive there, you know, when you cross over the river bridge to go from southern Indiana into Louisville, like a few miles after the bridge, might even just be like 1 or 2 miles, they have a place called Hospital Curve.
Yeah.
And it's called that because there's like 3 or 4 major hospitals there, including like the University of Louisville's hospital. But it's also such a bad curve that's like where all the semis, that's like the major, that's the major thoroughfare for like semis to get anything to the south, is going down 65. That's like where they would like tip over. The curve would be so bad and stuff. And so they would have to like go to the hospital. And so we're going through this curve, and all of a sudden Sabu just starts kicking me in the back of the head while he's in the back seat, and like with force. And I'm like I'm like flying up into the steering wheel, and I'm like trying to drive, and I'm like, Ian, get your fucking friend to stop kicking me in the back of the head so I can drive. And like everybody's like trying to calm him down, and he's screaming and going, where's Jamie? He kept thinking that Jamie Dundee was on the show, and like, Jamie Dundee can't come into the state of Kentucky because he's got warrants for his arrest for unpaid child support. Like, Jamie's not here. Stop kicking me. And
yeah, I remember after that Thanksgiving, like the following show, like Cash and Hero were fucking with me, saying, "Sabu, who's gonna fuck you up, man? Like, cause this happened and that happened, and he's real pissed off because of those pills you gave him and blah blah." And they were ribbing me. But then Todd Morton comes up to me, and he's just like, we're just shooting the shit, and completely, he doesn't know anything about how he and I were fucked up. And he says, "Man, I saw Sabu at the airport." Because remember, Todd worked at the airport. He said he found him passed out in like a chair, started going through his pockets looking for his boarding pass, and was pulling out bacon and like all kinds of like
shit. Bacon. It was,
and then he was able to get him on the flight. But like, I remember, somehow the me and Sabu smoking crack story made it onto the internet, and I remember like reading it on a message board that not that the the truth version of it, where we were smoking weed, but that we were smoking crack, and thinking I made it, like not being like pissed off or like embarrassed that it says I'm smoking crack with Sabu. I was like, yeah, all right. Like thinking this is great. Like I've made it. I'm a star now.
You're connected.
I was smoking crack with Sabu. Like if you would have told me in 1995 that I'd be accused of smoking crack with Sabu. But yeah, dude, too funny, man. But what else? Like the Lincoln Center debacle. That day.
I have that written down.
Yeah. Let's go into that. Like,
okay.
Just in case my wife is coming home soon.
Get it out now. Huh?
Yeah. So like Ian coming to Chicago and Northwest Indiana was something that he and I would like talk about all the time. And just like, since from the moment like I started fucking with Ian, I'd always be like, you guys got to come up north. You got to come to Chicago. Cause at the time there really wasn't shit going on in Chicago and the IWA product out there. You're in a crowded area, desperate for good wrestling. It was going to do good. And the Lincoln Center was a venue that I ran with the group that I broke in with, and they always drew really well there. It was a nice building. It was relatively cheap. And I started doing the legwork. Like I went in there, I talked to the building, did all that shit, blah, 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 got it going. And like got a ticket outlet for the place and all that shit. And originally, I remember I was supposed to work with Alex Shelley, like while I was gone with the broken foot and all that shit, was when like Alex Shelley, Jimmy Jacobs, and all those guys started coming into IWA and whatnot. And, and I remember I went from working with Alex Shelley to, it was supposed to be me and somebody versus Boz and Bradley or some shit. And it was just like, what the fuck is this shit? I didn't want to work with them. That's for sure.
You and Isaiah.
Yeah. I think originally it was supposed to be like me and Dysfunction, if I remember correctly. Okay. And then it ended up being me and Isaiah for some reason. But I get to the building, and prior to that, I had gone to I'd been sober for a bit, and then but in the months leading up to Lincoln Center, I had already begun using again. Like I remember getting out of rehab, and the day I got out of rehab, smoking a joint with some friends and being like, yeah, man, I think this rehab shit worked. I think like I'm cured. And then a few months later, back to normal. But prior to that, I had told Ian, I had, stressed Ian, I'm like, if I ever start getting high again, if I ever start using again, don't use me. I don't, I don't want anything to do with wrestling, blah, blah, blah. Don't use me anymore. So we get to the show. As soon as I get to the show, Balls and Axel want to go get crack. I'm like, I call my crack guy. My crack guy's not around. I'm like, I can't get crack, but I can get heroin. And they're like, okay. So we hop in my car before the show. We head to the ticket outlet. They didn't sell any fucking pre-sale. And I remember like just act like I couldn't believe we didn't sell any pre-sale. Sabu was on the poster, for Christ's sakes. How did we not sell any pre-sale? And I remember arguing with them at the fucking video store, like that they were trying to like steal money or some shit. So fast forward, we get our dope. Axel was he must not have been a big heroin user at the time, if at all, because he got a $20 bag, didn't even finish it, gave me the rest of it. Balls finished all his. I would have been fine had it just been that, but Axel also gave me a handful of Soma. And being an idiot, I took all the Soma, and that's what fucking did me in. But so the match, super simple. They're going over. They were just goofs, bro. Like at that point, for better or worse, I had, I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I've been working high for years. And plus, I'm not doing anything that's going to hurt anybody. I'm not condoning it and saying that I was in the right by any means, but half the locker room was working to various degrees of high at some one point or another in IWA. I was super fucked up on Soma. And I've never watched the match back. I tried watching it at one point and just watched the entrance, and I could tell I'm super fucked up, and it just like made my skin crawl. So I found out later from people that were there that they were talking about shooting on me immediately. Carmine said they said they were going to shoot me in the corner and give me running double boots. Like they thought they were Gordy and Williams. You know, they thought this was their big push and this is their make it time, you know, and I'm going to ruin it for them. So they're just going to beat the fuck out of me. And keep in mind, like I helped get Boz into IWA. Boz was a 40-year-old guy fucking wrestling for the quasi backyard group. You know, he wasn't even fully trained. And, you know, just if you got a problem, if I'm too high to work, come and tell me, dude. I would have been so embarrassed that people knew I was high. I would have fucking shriveled up and died. You know what I mean? Like I would have felt so ashamed, you know? And Brad, who I would go out of my way to try to be nice to because everybody else was so mean to him. If you could see how mean Punk was to him and how badly Punk belittled him, and like Brad would try to talk to Punk, and but Punk would just straight up to say, "Shut the fuck up, Brad," and Brad would just be like, "Oh." I've never seen someone so big be such a pussy in my life. Like I try not to have any like ill will towards anybody in wrestling, but like fucking Bradley is probably the one person that I still like fucking like. I think about him and I just get sick to my stomach. Like I just dislike him so much because he's such a bitch. He like I remember getting stuck going to Minnesota with him and going to his house, his parents' home. Fucking rich, like rich ass neighborhood. Family must have had tons of money. I'm sitting waiting for him to come downstairs. On the dining room table is a handwritten note from his dad telling him not to be a pussy, don't be lazy, blah, 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 blah. And meanwhile, he's like 23, 24 years old, and his dad's leaving him notes like this. And I'm just like, Jesus Christ, how sad this is. Fucking Dominion, I remember telling me how when he came to sign up for wrestling school, his dad shit all over him. His dad was like, his other brothers are great athletes. I don't know what the fuck his problem is. He's a loser and he sucks. You know what I mean? Shit like this. And I just felt bad for him. I remember asking Punk one time, like, why are you so mean to this fuck? And he gave me a reason, and it was completely 100% valid. And I was like, all right, I get it now why you're a dick to him, right? But anyways, I would try to be nice to him because I felt so bad for him. They like, I gave them no reason to do what they fucking did to me. But anyways, I'm working the match, and we're outside the ring brawling, and Brad spins me around, hooks me for a suplex. I fucking jump for him. I land. I must have bumped clean because no issues whatsoever. But while I'm selling, I realize he just fucking suplexed me on the fucking floor. And then it clicks in my brain. I'm fucking high. And everybody knows I'm high. And that's why they did it. And meanwhile, I'm telling everybody I'm sober. I was telling, you know, I got out of rehab. And this is, and I couldn't tell you, like I was talking with a Japanese company at that time, that Gaia Boys. I was sending them tapes and I'm like, I'm going to get sober. I was get back on gas. I'm like, I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to get this Japan thing. And then everything's going to fucking fall into place from there. And I'm going to get back in the swing of things. And at that moment, I realized like I fucked everything up again, you know, and I was just so embarrassed. So I'm like, I'm going to lay here and act like I'm hurt because I don't want Ian to yell at me. Because I'm thinking Ian's going to chew me out. And right in the back of my mind, I'm thinking like, I just got Ian this building. He's going to say, you're already going to get me to lose the building because you're all fucked up and blah, 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 blah. And I didn't want to disappoint him because like I don't need to explain it to you, but at the same time, like for all Ian's faults and shit like that, but for how like stupid we were at that time and just the wrestling business, I looked at him almost like a father figure type thing where it's like, you know, I didn't want to disappoint him. And so I laid there acting like I was hurt. It could have been 10 minutes. It could have been 4, it could have been 5 minutes, whatever. A switch flips and I stop feeling ashamed and I get angry. So I fucking run into the ring and I just remember throwing fucking live rounds. I don't know who I hit or whatever. I remember I gave Boz a fucking black eye. And because when I got in the back and I was screaming, I was like, what could have I done to hurt you guys? He goes, look at my fucking eye. And that's the only reason I remember that. And I was looking for Bradley because I was going to fucking kill him. And they said he left. And later I found out he was like hiding in the women's locker room with Lacey and Rain. And if you're fucking big ass Brad Bradley and me at like my fucking worst, are you going to fucking hide from me? You know what I mean? Like, I would have been like, come on, you drugged out motherfucker, and slapped the fuck out of me. But just somebody's such a big pussy. Jimmy Jacobs fucking beat his ass. Like, you know, like the fact that I heard that he was a bully for like years after that people were scared of him and shit, and he used to fucking stiff people and fuck people up in the ring, get stiff and shit. It's like, dude, like anybody could have beat the fuck out of that guy.
Well, I just remember that, you know, with Boz and Brad, and I don't have any beef with them, whatever kind of, you know, it is what it is. But, you know, I ended up having to take the chair shot from Balls Mahoney in the 8-man tag that we did, where it was me, Carmine, Boz, and Brad against Ian, Steve Stone, Madman Pondo, Balls. And I had already taken all 4 finishers from the 4 of them. And then they're like, your partners left you. None of them took a chair shot from Balls. Balls wants to do a chair shot. Will you let him do a chair shot to you?
Yeah.
And so because the trained wrestlers, Boz and Brad, didn't want any part, and it hightailed it and gotten out of there, then I ended up, after already taking 4 finishers, then I had to take the chair shot from Balls.
Sounds about right.
You know.
And then at that point, like, it was just like I was just so embarrassed by all that shit. Like, it was just so fucking embarrassing that I knew, like, the only way I'm going to get sober is if I just fucking walk away from wrestling. And that's essentially what I did after that. Like I would come back periodically and do little shit here and there. But after that point, I knew like I'm not going to be able to stay sober in wrestling. And part of me wishes I would have came back after I had a handful of years sober and started doing it again.
Yeah, because it looks like, you know, this was at the end of 2003 when this happened in Highland. And it looks like you only wrestled 4 times in 2004, only wrestled twice in 2005. And then you came back to IWA in 2006 and did 4 shows. And then you didn't wrestle again for 5 years after that.
Yeah. I did some, like, I was doing some like midget shit a little bit here and there and just like random stuff. Like, but yeah, like, it just, that was it for me. And part of it was just like, I felt so embarrassed, man. Like, it just was like, I couldn't believe that they, like, I felt like they got one over on me. Like it fucked with my head big time, man. Like I had a bad run for a while after that. Like, it wasn't like that happened and I got immediately sober. You know, I left wrestling, but it took a couple of years for me to get my shit together. Like, I got like 20 years sober now. Shows you how long ago this shit was. But like, I wanted to murder that motherfucker. like I there's so much, like, me and a couple buddies were sitting around one night, and these were like, you know, not good people, and they were just asking me, like, what's going on? Like, how come you don't wrestle anymore? And I told them the story, and they're like, oh, are you going to let that motherfucker get away with that shit? You know, blah, blah, blah. And it just so happened there was a show at fucking the Lincoln Center that night, and the motherfucker was on it. So we drove to the Lincoln Center, and we were all fucked up, and we were sitting in the car, and we were going to wait for this motherfucker to come out and going to snatch him up and like throw him in the fucking trunk and shit. And we passed out in the car, and a local dude who was a referee in Chicago was like outside at like intermission or some shit drinking, and he came up with a beer to the car, and he stuck his head in the car, and he's like, hey Chuck, what's up, man? And then he looked in and he saw some of the shit that was in there, and he just like fucking, like, he saw a ghost and just like, all right, man, good seeing you, and took off. And then we're like, all right, we better go, and just took off. But like that's how bad I wanted to hurt that dude, man. And but in retrospect, like, I wish it hadn't happened, but it worked out, man. And I've, probably could have saved my life. And I'm not thanking him for it by any means, but everything turned out all right, man.
Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned before, I did not get very close to you guys
Were you
on
were you there?
shows.
Were you there? Were you at that
I
show?
don't think I was at that. I don't think I
Yeah, I
did
don't.
the first Highland show, um, because it was. I think I had to like work at Home Depot and
Gotcha.
couldn't get off. So I don't think I did that first show. Um, but like I've mentioned on the podcast, and you've met like Ian was Ian was like the father figure for you guys, and he takes a lot of heat for a lot of things, and most of it is well deserved and earned.
Yeah.
But he, I said earlier, all you would have had to have done was call him and say, "Can I be
Yeah.
on the show?" And he'd put you on the show. I mean, he would use anybody.
Yeah. But to his credit, man, that night afterwards, right? I went out with Axel after the show. Like, I had a complete like mental breakdown, dude. Like, I punched the fucking wall and my hand blew up to the size of a catcher's mitt. Like just embarrassing, man. Like, if the internet had been around back then and cell phones, like, I would have been a viral goof. Like, because I had like, I've never even spoke to anybody who was around there when it happened. I remember Isaiah was super nice to me. I remember him like, putting his arm around me and trying to like talk me down. I remember fucking Axel, whatever. Corporal, the good lion motherfucker he is. Oh God bless him. He told everybody, Chuck's sober, man. I was with him all day. I know he's sober. Somebody put a Mickey in his drink. And I'm like, when I found that out, I'm like, God bless him. What a good guy to lie for me like that. Like, there's a spot in heaven for him just for that. But I remember Isaiah was like just real nice to me, and Axel as well. And then afterwards, I go out with Balls and Axel, and we're just like hitting up random bars. We end up meeting Ian up at a restaurant. I ended up getting a phone number from a hot Polish waitress, and I remember being in the bathroom taking a piss, and Ian comes up to me, and I apologized to him, and like, for all the horrible shit like people can say about Ian, I remember he like came up to me and he gave me a hug, man. He's like, "It's okay, dude." He's like, "You have a drug problem, man." He's like, "Get your shit together, like blah blah blah." Like, and I just remember like at that moment it meant something, and for all his faults, he's a human being. Like, everybody's capable of good and bad. I'm sure Jeffrey Dahmer held open doors for people. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
just
And like what I was saying, though, I didn't get close to many of the wrestlers, only a very handful of them. And, I was worried about you at that point when you had gotten to that level that you were at.
Yeah.
And, worried that you were just going to become another statistic. So it's great that we've gotten to reconnect here this past week, and that, you bucked that trend. And it makes me so happy to see that you've turned your life around and been sober for 20 years. That's
Yeah, man.
fantastic to hear.
I appreciate it, dude. Like, if you think about it, man, if you think about all the people from back then that were fucking around, dude, I'm one of the few that made it, man, and it's because I think I got out. Like, I think that's the only reason, dude. If I would have stayed in, it's just hard, man. It's just hard. Like, just constantly being around. You can't quit drinking by still going into bars and shit. Like, you can't if you're a sex addict, you can't just be like I'm just gonna go to the strip club and get lap dances. I'm not gonna pay for prostitutes and stuff. Eventually it's gonna happen, and so many guys think that get hooked on opiates, and especially back then, man, when it was crazy. Like, I used to take bookings just because that's where the pills were. Like, I would do fucking 4 shows in Detroit a month because that's where the pill hookup was. Like, the OxyContin Connect for professional wrestling was in Detroit, and he sold 80 milligram Oxy for $20. In Chicago, they were going for $1 a milligram. I'd show up there with like $600, and fuck, man, it's just insane. And like you say widespread, like it wasn't like everybody was on that shit, but it seemed like it at times. There were quite a few people that were fucking with it. The first time I ever had an oxy was at an IWA show. Somebody was trying to sell an oxy for $20, and I was like, $20, like get the fuck out of here. And Ricky Morton was like, oh shit, like it's worth $20. And it was a like 120 milligram oxy that I didn't even know exist. And Corp was there, and Corp was like, they don't even make 120 milligrams. And the dude who sold it to us was like, bullshit, they don't, and pulled it out. And me and Corp split it. And that was the first time I ever took one of those and got fucking ridiculously fucked up and passed out with a bag of Arby's on the way home with Prazak.
Well, let's start wrapping this up. And I would just want to tell a couple of quick stories. You know, you were just mentioning Corporal. There's a Corporal story that I just absolutely love that you're involved with. Mentioned it to you the other day when we were talking, and you know, Corporal, known to embellish things, had his wound on his stomach, that at different points in time in IWA lore and stories, you know, he was stabbed in Iraq.
Yeah, I heard Bosnia, I think was what I heard.
He was stabbed in Bosnia. He was stabbed in Afghanistan. The man was in like every military occupation, you know, and had gotten stabbed with a bayonet to cause this
Hell
wound.
Yeah.
That you had the same wound.
Yeah, man.
On your stomach.
Yeah.
And so you went out one night and did that, you know, how did you word it in the ring? You were like war buddies with Corporal,
yeah,
and pulled it off to expose the same scar. And Corporal was not as amused with that as everybody else was.
I thought he was in on it. He wasn't in on it?
He was not in on it.
No. Yeah, I thought he was in on it. I didn't know.
And
was that the night I came out dressed like him?
Yes, you came out like dressed like him. And
yeah. I was such a Corp fan, dude. Like I loved Corp so much. Like I loved hanging out with him. I loved his work. Like he was just such a character, man. Like when I lived in Bloomington, Indiana, he came out and stayed with me a couple times, man. Like he just always had something going on. Like he showed up and we went on the road together, and he whipped out this fucking, like it looked like the size of like a gigantic protein bottle container, right? And it was like an industrial sized Vicodin, like something that like, and
damn.
And he said who he got it from, and they fronted it to him, and I'm like, well, what are you gonna do with it? He's like, well, we're gonna take him. And like he didn't pay the dude back, and like the whole fucking ride we're taking him in just like handfuls, and it was just insane. And like half the shit he'd tell you, like you wouldn't know if it was true or if it was bullshit or whatnot. Like there's so many fucking, but he I don't know, dude. Like I remember one time traveling, it was me, Too Tough Tony, T.O. Do you remember T.O.?
Yep, I remember T.O.
T.O. and Corporal's wife. So Corporal's wife's driving. Corporal's in the front seat. It's me, Tony, and T.O. in the back. Tony and Corporal start fighting. Tony and Corporal always they were buddies, but they always had heat with each other. Like, you know, Tony always secretly hated Corp, I believe, and probably vice versa. And they were going at it about something. And before Corp and his wife got together, I used to mess around with Corp's wife in Milwaukee. Tony brings it up. Tony says something about like, yeah, Chucky fucked your wife or some shit. And I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, you know, and like we're all high as fuck. And I'm just like, I can't believe he just said that. And Corp was just super smooth. He's like, I know everything fucking they did with each other. And like, and he's like, and it happened before us. And I don't even care. He's my boy. It was just like, so I was like, all right, Corp.
Well, it's good that you were before.
Yeah. Oh, most definitely. Yeah.
Because we had, you know, there was a tried and true rule in IWA, and I'm sure you heard it a million times. Once Corpse hit it, you must forget it.
Yeah, he was a smooth dude, man. But like, there was another the bikini girl. So for the longest time, the first night Bikini Girl came in to Carmine's show, she ended up hanging out at Carmine's house, and it was me, her, and Corp hanging out at the end of the night, and like she and I like made out or fooled around or whatever. And Corp had told everybody that he slept with her, and it was going around for the longest time. So like a year or so later, Bikini Girl had enough, and she had a breakdown about it, and this did not happen, and she demands Court be brought to Ian's trailer now. So Ian he's at another trailer in the park, and Ian sends somebody out to find Court. Court comes back because it started because Hito, Japanese
bad boy Hito.
Yes, yeah. Hito just points at Hito was a dickhead. He was a fucking dickhead. He points at Bikini Girl and goes, "You fuck Court," and she just started crying. So that's what started it off. So Corp comes over. Ian reads him the riot act. And Bikini Girl is freaking out. Ian says, "Tell the truth now. Did you sleep with Bikini Girl?" Corp says, "No, I did not." Bikini Girl throws her arms up, celebrates. "See, I told you." She's telling everybody. And without missing a beat, Corp turns around to everybody, goes, and then I just fucking popped. Like, because I know he's lying like a motherfucker, but he finally admitted that he didn't. But he had.
And for those that are not watching on the YouTube and are listening on the, Chucky mouthed that Corporal tried to tell everybody that it was a blowjob. Not actually. And that is like perfectly
the comedic timing of the all-time greats. Like, unbelievable. Like a complete legend.
And Corporal, I mean, not the most handsome fellow in the world. But no. that man was magic with the ladies.
Dude.
I mean, he was something else. And we would joke about it all the damn time. And he was like Joey Tribbiani on Friends, except that, Joey Tribbiani would be, "Hey, how you doing?" Except Corp would be like, "Hey, sweetie." And the women would just melt from "Hey, sweetie."
Dude,
he sweetied my grandmother, and I kicked him out of my house. I was like, "Get out of my house! How dare you play that to my grandmother?"
When I was in going to IU, and he would come stay with me at Bloomington, his forehead fucking like it is, and just how he looks. He would come and he'd have his collared shirt on, and he would dress nice and have his hair combed and shit. And I'd be like I loved him so much I didn't give a fuck, but I'm like, he's gonna stick out like a sore thumb. Like that place was full of like just popped collared frat boys in like 2000, 2001 and all that shit. It was insane. But this motherfucker would still charm these girls. Like these girls who would look at him and like, fucking hold on to their rape whistle, and like, but by the time he got done talking to them, they were thinking about fucking him. You know what I mean? Like, and it was just like amazing. Like goddamn Corp. But like, there's so many things. Like, I would love to have just hook Corp up to a lie detector and have an interview with, because he would say that, like, he told me that he went to school at IU and he was on the baseball team before he got hurt, and that's when he joined the military, that he had a baseball scholarship to IU, and he knew the name of the coach and this and that, and he knew this building and that building, and I'm thinking, like, is he fucking working me, or is this true? But I'm like, you'll never know.
Well, if you remember from the podcast before you,
I heard you say he was a good baseball player.
Rich Wayne. Yeah. Rich Wayne knows somebody who went to school with Corporal in high school, and that Corporal was a damn good player on the high school baseball team. I don't know. He went to, I don't know, but he was a hell of a baseball player.
Yeah, it's possible, man. It's possible. But like, yeah, people have no idea. Like Corp just amazing. He's someone who, like, he could have had a reality show. Like he was on a reality show. Oh, that truck thing, or the repo, right?
Yeah, the repo thing. And my grandmother liked that show. She would watch it. And then I'm just watching it one night with her, and like Tony and Corporal are on there, and she's like getting all worked up, and then she's like, do I know that guy? And I'm like, yes, he's been in our house. That's a wrestler. I was like, this show's fake.
That's awesome.
And she was so mad. She never watched it again after that.
That's
She
awesome.
thought it was real. But I want to end with us telling Carmine stories, because
Oh, geez.
I don't know when I'm ever going to unless I have Dave Prazak on an episode, I don't know how I'm really ever going to get to this story. But we shared some Carmine stuff in a
Well,
personal
just
phone call,
real
so I
quick.
don't expect that story from you. But if you have a Carmine story, I'll tell mine real quick while you think of one that you can actually get away with
Yeah.
telling, that won't upset anybody. But we had talked about it the night that Carmine punched me at the bar after one of the shows. And there's a line I want you to give as
Oh no,
background
yeah.
here.
You
So
you would go to those Carmine shows and you would stand at the merch table with like your arms folded, like acting like you were being forced to watch, like bestiality videos, like and you'd be like, "Hey, what's up, Jim?" And you'd be like, "This show's fucking sucks. I'd rather be anywhere." Like you would just be like a total unrepentant dick, dude.
I hated those shows with a fucking passion. I could not stand them. I'd be up all fucking day and I'd be working, and then I'd have to drive, from Louisville to Milwaukee, and sit through these atrocious ass fucking shows with fucking Farmer Vic and you know fucking Skull Crusher that fucking sucked, and Mauler and Thumper, and just all these fucking rejects that would bore the shit out of me. And I could not fucking Reverend Axel Future. I mean, just so many guys that would just I would rather have been anywhere else on the face of God's green earth than at these fucking shows. But I would my body language would give that off, but I would say it to like the IWA guys, but I didn't. And I sat and I got into, I go to the bar, because you would always have to go the sponsored bar after the shows. Everybody would have to go to the damn place. And I'd go, and I'm just sitting with Prazak. Not Prazak's got some Japanese wrestling playing on the TV in the bar. I'm just sitting there talking to Prazak, minding my own business. Haven't said anything to Carmine. Haven't said anything to any of the Mid-American guys. Just minding my own business. And Carmine walks up to me and goes, "Who the fuck do you think you are?"
And then he
And
punches you.
I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Who the fuck do you think you are?" And I looked at him and I said, "I'm somebody who puts on better wrestling shows than you do." And he gets all pissed off and punches me in the face. And I just look at him like, what the fuck? That's the best you've got? That's the best you've got? And then he gets all pissed and he starts yelling at me in Carney because I
Shit.
didn't sell.
Gotta go.
All right.
All right, my man. Catch you later, bud.
All right. See ya. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye. Well, we've lost Chucky Smooth to some family stuff that he has going on at his house, trying to get everybody taken care of. So I will finish this Carmine story. So anyway, Carmine punches me and gets mad that I did not sell for him in front of all of his marks that were at the show and had come to the bar to hang out with the wrestlers. I just look at him and say, "I don't work for you, so why the fuck would I sell for you?" Corporal had come over and was like, "Do you want me to kill him for you?" And I'm like, "I can kill him myself. I don't need you to do it for me." But I went and I left, went and sat out in the car, and it was one of the nights that put a strain on my friendship with Ian. because, instead of Ian getting mad that, this guy came over and punched me in the face for no reason, other than the fact that, he would always say to Ian that I was not one of the boys because I wouldn't drink, I wouldn't smoke, I wouldn't do drugs with them. And so I was never one of the boys. And I'm like, well, if that's what it takes to be one of the boys, then no, I'm not one of the boys. And, but the fact that, Ian made me sit out in the car for another hour and a half after that had happened before he was ready to go back to the hotel, just leaving me sit out there. Corporal was ready to fight for me if I wanted him to. And I had to tell Corporal, you work up here, you get a payday. Don't worry about it. I'm fine. But, Ian didn't make that offer, and Ian didn't offer to, like, okay, let's go back to the hotel. Instead he just makes me sit out in the car for, like I said, for an hour and a half, while he stayed and drank and acted like nothing had happened. And, that was one of the nights where I was like, well, I see where I rate here. And then, to try to mend fences or whatever, then he makes me have to, like, work with Carmine in IWA, where I'm, like, supposed to be some kind of protege for Carmine to mentor as a manager. And, that just irked me to no end. So that's the end of my Carmine story. Maybe we'll get Chucky Smooth back on here another time and he can tell a Carmine story. But this wraps up another edition of Fannin's Flashbacks. I'd like to thank Chucky Smooth for joining me today. Remember to check out my YouTube channel at youtube.com/sportsfannin for IWA clips and matches and these podcasts. When you get to the YouTube channel, start by clicking that like button and subscribe. Check out brokenmerchtable.com for t-shirts of Nick Manawa, Jess B's Knees, Mean Mitch Page, Rolling Hard, and yours truly, Jim Fannin. If you like the design for the shirt I'm wearing tonight, the Jim Father, with the Godfather puppeteer logo, and the Godfather font on Jim Fannin. If you like that design, go give my godson James Christopher a follow on Twitter at Candido24K_. And if you're looking to have some design work done for yourself, shoot James Christopher a DM and he'll be happy to work out a affordable deal with you to do some great work for you too. You can follow me on Twitter at jfannin73, TikTok at jim.jj.fannin, and on Instagram at IWAFannin73. And we'll see you next time on episode 7 of Fannin's Flashbacks. So let it be written, so let it be done. Good day.